Hello, I'm Dr. Ron Charles. Welcome today. We have been talking about Hezekiah the last couple of times, and the Word of God says that there never was a man before him that was as godly or after him. And but with that godliness also came some major challenges. You know, Hezekiah rooted out all of the evil in Judah, and he cut down all of the and destroyed all of the images and idols and things that people were worshiping, and he purified the priesthood. He even took down the brass serpent. You know, the back 990 years before this time is when the serpents began to play havoc with the people of Israel on their escape from Egypt. And those vipers are still very much in Egypt today, and in the Sinai desert. With our work in Egypt and in Sudan and Libya, we've seen them quite a number of times. And what they are is that they're a snake about this long. And if any of you have any shoestrings, look down at the shoestring, and that's about the size of those vipers. But they are the most deadly serpent in the entire world. And just one bite is fatal. And most of the doctors over there in the Middle East will tell you that if you get bitten by one of these, you have 100% death, 100% fatal. And so, but they're so small, and their head is only about as big as the fingernail on your little finger, but what's inside is deadly. But the teeth are very, very small. And so if you wear boots out in the Sahara, then they can't bite through the boots. It's just when you're, if you get bitten in some of the fashion, then it's deadly. But if this serpent, this viper gets on your hand, what they do is this head will bob up and down, up and down, up and down, until they find a vein or an artery. Then they go down with their teeth or with their fangs into that blood vessel and inject their poison. And what happens after about 5 minutes, you begin to burn on the inside, like fire is going through your veins, and you begin to sweat, and then you begin to swell up. And what is happening is that the blood is becoming gelled. Your blood very shortly begins to look like Vaseline, and your heart pumps and pumps and pumps, and it just can't get the blood through your body. And that makes your body start swelling very quickly. And within 20 minutes or so after you're bitten, then your body is so swollen that the skin actually breaks open, and you have a fluid that comes out of out of the broken open skin. And then within the next 10 minutes, then it's 100% fatal. You die with your heart failure or whatever is the cause of it. And this was the same type of viper that the Israelites met in the desert, just south of the Negev desert. And there's where Moses was instructed by God to put up the brass serpent or the brass snake, and whoever looked on it, then they would be healed of their affliction, they healed of the disease caused by the snake bite. And so since that time, this is 990 years before this time of Hezekiah. So over the past almost 1,000 years, this image went from a symbol of God's grace and a symbol of His healing power into something to be honored, into something that was to be exalted into the highest level, into the level of worship. Not only would they worship this image of this servant, this serpent, because they said this is an image of God himself. And so when you worship the serpent, and this particular brass serpent, when you worship this, it's just like worshiping God. And an entire religion evolved around it. And in each city, each town, and each village had their own image of this snake. The primary one was located in Jerusalem. That's where the original that Moses made was brought into Jerusalem, and there it had remained for almost 1,000 years. But each community and each village had their own image of this snake. And they would, if you're not able to go to Jerusalem, and you were required to go to Jerusalem at least one time in your life to pay homage to this serpent in the name of God. And but each village had their own. And around that also revolved a system of religion. They had their own priests. They had their own counselors. They had their own workers that worked on behalf of God through the image of the serpent. And Hezekiah says, enough is enough. And so he went throughout all of the land of Judah. After he, just within months after he was appointed to be king, he went through the entire land. Every city he went to, every village, every town, and he destroyed those images. And he told those priests, get yourself right with God, because this is not God. This is the image of a miracle that God provided. It is not him. It's not an image of him. And so for at least 4 years, he went throughout the entire country, and he destroyed the priesthood surrounding these serpents and the serpents themselves. Then he turned his attention to the big one, his attention to the one who had been around for 990 years, had been worshipped. There was a small temple that had been built and dedicated to this serpent and to this brass serpent. Finally, Hezekiah said, it's Nehushtan. It's nothing but brass. It's nothing. It is not God. It doesn't have the Spirit of God in it. It doesn't have the power of God in it. It is just brass. And he broke it to pieces. And as he did, he established his own power to be that servant of the Most High God. He did away with other idols and had burnt temples, brought them to the ground, high places, and the places where they worshiped other gods through various altars. He tore them down and he burned them. Now he was surrounded. As we explained before, the armies of Shalmaneser, the armies of Assyria, at least 150,000 were immediately around Jerusalem. And there was, with those and the ones that were the auxiliaries, there were 338,000 Assyrian soldiers who surrounded the city of Jerusalem. Now, the Assyrians were quite fascinating. They not only did they have weapons that they invented, but they also were the very first ones in all of history to use animals as a fighting force. They would use lions as a lion's brigade. They would also use elephants that they had as fighting as a fighting brigade, and the most devastating that they had were the war eagles, and the war eagles were very large. The type of eagle that they use, they are only now stuffed in museums. They don't exist anymore. They've become extinct, and it was dedicated to Avin, which was the eagle-headed god of war for the Assyrians. And this war eagle was devastating. He had a huge wingspan. The wingspan would go out at least 8 feet. And these eagles were just, they were deadly. And what would happen is that one Syrian soldier would hold the eagle in place, and then they would begin to circle the walls of the city. And as they began to circle, then the eagle began to flap his wings. And as he began to flap his wings and get strength in his wings, then the guy the soldier that was holding him with the cord, and they would actually be lifted up for 10, 15, 20 feet. And as they went around the city, they were only hitting the ground only a few times as they went completely around the city, because the eagle would push them up and bring them just 50 feet, 100 feet to another side before they hit the ground again. And this rope that they used to hold the eagle with, it was called a quahike. A quahike in the Assyrian language. We called it a weight. And when Jesus was talking about you can't have God or mammon, that you either have the one or the other, and what he was talking about, be weighted and be pulled together with one or the other. And this is what Isaiah is talking about with this in the 41st, on the 40th chapter of Isaiah, when he says this: even the youth, verse number 30, even the youth shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fall. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint. They that wait. In other words, wait means to be bound together, to be strung together, as this rope was. And this rope had 14 layers of flax, and they were all woven together. And then within the inside of the woven flax, there was also a cord of cotton, which made it very, very, very strong. And one strand would not be strong enough with these eagles to hold them in place, but 14 strands all together, which meant they were weighted. And so this prophecy that Isaiah said is that they that wait upon the Lord, they that are bound together with the Lord, that are bound and braided together, then they shall renew their strength. And so these eagles, as they are held in place with the weight and held in place with that rope, then they go around the city. And these guys can go out there all day long and run around that city, because they're only hitting the ground every number of feet. And sometimes they could perhaps go for 300 feet, 400 feet before they'd hit the ground again with their feet, then right back up. But then came the time for the eagle to be released. And when it was time, they would release the weight, and that eagle would begin to shoot straight up into the air. And he would go up till he was almost out of sight. And then he would turn and begin to dive at almost 60 miles an hour. And he would dive and pick out a target on the inside of the wall. And he would hit that person and absolutely knock their head off, literally. The Assyrians had 1,700 war eagles. And those 1,700 war eagles did indeed kill 2,227 residents of Jerusalem. And so they could see the actual thing happening. Isaiah then prophesied by using this thing that they saw every day, that they were anticipating, that they saw with their own eyes, and he made it into a spiritual lesson. They that wait upon the Lord, they that are tied together with him, that are braided together with him, and they're totally encompassed in him, then they will run and they'll not be weary. They'll walk and they'll not faint. And they will indeed mount up with wings as eagles. And they will then have the potential and have the power to defeat the enemy, regardless of how experienced, how dedicated, and how determined that enemy is going to be. And so Hezekiah, through the natural circumstances of being the victim of the Assyrian army, did indeed understand what waiting on the Lord is actually all about. Now for us, when we are ministering in the Islamic world, ministering in Egypt, Sudan, Iraq, Syria, Libya, then we have learned this lesson. We learned that if you try to do it by yourself, you're going to get run over and you're going to become a victim of the enemy that's out there. And there are many times that we have to just back off for a couple of days, spend that in prayer and fasting, just for one purpose only, and that's to make sure that we are tied together with Christ, tied together with him. Because if you're tied together with him, then there is no attack of the enemy that's going to overcome you. That has done very well for us through these 30 years of ministry in the Islamic world. There have been times where we didn't know if we were going to make it through the day. There were times that we didn't know that we were going to make it past terrorism for the next 10 minutes. But God was always there. And you could always feel like we are braided together with him. You could feel his strength. You could feel his tremendous ability, his confidence that, guys, I got everything under control. You're wrapped in me. So let's do it. There's so many times we have been called in the middle of the night. You know, the Islamic world, if you're making a judgment, especially a religious judgment against an infidel, then you have to have two witnesses. One of the witnesses has to be a believer. That's an Islamic believer in Islam, and an infidel, a Christian. And I've been called to be that infidel many, many, many times. And we're standing there with our handcuffs on and not knowing really what's going to happen next. But then the people are brought out, 2, 4, 14, however many that are going to be sentenced and accused and executed that day. They know that with the next few minutes that they are going to get a bullet in the brain. They're going to get a knife across their throat. They're going to get a knife through their belly. or something. And we're standing there to officially sign as a witness that the government of Allah, or that the will of Allah has been carried out. But every one of them, they will ask you one question among two. They say, does Jesus still love me? And we can say to them, yes, not only does Jesus love you now, he'll love you for eternity. Is Jesus still with me? And I can say, he'll never leave you. He'll never forsake you. He will be with you now and for all of eternity. Whether this is your last day on earth or you have another day to go, he will always be with you and he will always love you. And we're able to do that because we know that we are bound together, braided together with Jesus Christ.
Emergency officials in Puerto Rico say the island has been destroyed. The storm knocking out power everywhere.
Hurricane Maria laying waste to this once tropical paradise. Roads now deserted. Signs that life here has come to a complete standstill.
Hey, I'm Brad Charles with Cupid Foundation. We're here in a community, it's called La Hormiga, which means the ant.
La Hormiga is a small community located in northern Puerto Rico. It's a humble place where there is great need.
I'm here with a bunch of friends of mine from a church, Watkinsville First Baptist.
My name is Vic Doss. I am the college pastor at Watkinsville First Baptist, and I am here with 15 college students serving alongside the Cupid Foundation in a community called La Hormiga. We're just here to love and serve the people of Puerto Rico.
This community got hit pretty hard. Most of these people in this community are squatters. And so when FEMA, the organization FEMA comes through, if you have a title of your land, they will help you more. If you don't have a title of land, if you're a squatter, then you don't get much help.
6 months have passed, and there is still so much that needs to be done. So that's exactly what Brad Charles and the Cupid Foundation are here to do.
Brad loves marginalized people. He's great with people. He's great at what he does. I knew if we were going to do disaster relief, any kind of construction thing, I wanted Brad with us.
So we're here helping this one guy in particular, putting a roof on his house. He has diabetes. He's lost a lot of his fingers, his toes. There's another lady up the street. She's a single mom, 2 kids, patching holes in her roof, putting some new tin on, fixing a window, just little things like that.
When Maria hit in September and we started seeing video footage of what had happened to Puerto Rico, there was a deep need, obviously. Category 5 hurricane hits. A lot of destruction, people without power.
Eager to get started, Cupid and the team prepare to do whatever they can to repair some of the damage. And with help from locals as well, all the right people came together to make this project happen.
Mi nombre es Benjamín Sánchez Maldonado. Soy pastor de la Iglesia Cristiana Casa de Bendición y trabajo en la comunidad, en esta comunidad en Puerto Rico.
One of the local churches has targeted that neighborhood just to reach into it and to love on it and to get the gospel in there. And so that was exciting for us that there would be a local church, so when we left, there would still be a presence here spiritually.
Once all the details were in line, it was time to get to work. And no matter how you help, trust me, it all adds up. Cubit uses trips like these in order to be able to service those that are in deepest need, helping them both physically and spiritually.
The physical and the spiritual need are hard to separate, and so the beautiful thing about Cubit is you're meeting physical needs, and because the local church has come alongside, there's always going to be the ability to step into that and meet the spiritual needs, and to love people through the gospel and explain to them the only reason we're here is because Jesus has saved us and brought us into relationship with him, and he commands us to go to the least of these and to meet those needs.
My favorite thing that we've done so far is walk around to the neighborhood to do surveys, just to meet the people and hear their stories and assess the damage and see what needs to be done by later teams, and just talking with these people and asking them if they needed prayer, if they wanted us to pray with our team when we got back to the house. They got emotional almost every single time, and it was so cool to see that they just wanted someone to listen, to show that they cared, to show that we were praying for them, and for them to just feel that God loves them, and for them to see that in a unique way was the biggest blessing for me, and I think for a lot of people on the team.
All the support behind the Cubit Foundation is what makes this possible, allowing them to restore hope not only to people of Puerto Rico, but across the globe.
So from a real young age, I've always had a kind of burden to help real poor folks, people that are down on their luck, and they have nowhere else to turn. And so this is why I do what I do. God put something in me, especially in the Hispanic culture. But I mean, I help people all over the world, but it is our job to help others, to help widows, to help orphans, help guys like this guy that he's lost his hands and feet, that can't do anything. So I would encourage every person out there to use the gifts that God has given you. It doesn't matter what you got. Everybody has gifts. Everybody's good at something. Please use it. God's given you all kinds of talents. So I appreciate it. I wanted to thank everybody that gives so much to the Cubit Foundation, that supports me, supports my mom and dad. It means a ton. It means a ton to everybody we help all over the world. We could not do it without you. Dios te bendiga.